This is the PickBits Daily Signal for Monday, July 13th, your signal in the day's tech noise. Here's the lineup. 1. We've spent 2 months asking who eats it if the AI build-out doesn't pay off, and this week a credit rating agency answered and named OpenAI. 2. Back in May, OpenAI was thinking about suing Apple. Apple got there first, and it brought receipts. 3. A professor took one exam off the internet, and his class average fell by 47 points. And 4. On the brighter side, an AI reread 376 children's cases that the specialists had already given up on. Let's get into it. This is the PickBits Daily Signal. Story 1, S&P Global cut Oracle's credit rating from BBB to BBB-. That's the bottom rung of investment grade, one notch above junk, and Oracle has never been this close to it. What makes it unusual is the reason they gave. They named a customer. OpenAI accounts for roughly half of Oracle's $638 billion backlog, and about $300 billion of that is Project Stargate. Now, we've been circling this same question since May. Who pays if the build-out doesn't pay? We ran it through your power bill when the grid watchdog put wholesale prices up 76%. We ran it through NVIDIA quietly bankrolling the customers buying its own chips. And 5 days ago, we ran Apollo's chief economist showing zero profit lift at the 493 companies outside the Magnificent Seven. Nobody had to do anything about any of that. This week, somebody with a rating to defend did. And one market analyst put it about as bluntly as you can.
Now they are over their skis because the bulk of their revenue backlog comes from OpenAI, and OpenAI has plans to spend $1.4 trillion between now and 2030, and yet the company makes no money.
The other cloud giants have a fallback that Oracle does not. If AI demand softens, Amazon and Google and Microsoft backfill those empty servers with their own work. Oracle has no second tenant. It has OpenAI. And S&P put a number on the squeeze. It now sees Oracle's free cash flow deficit hitting negative $42 billion in fiscal 2027, nearly double what it projected before, with capital spending heading toward $95 billion. Oracle is signing decades of leases to serve 5 years of promises. And I should be fair here because this cuts against me. BBB- is still investment grade. It isn't junk, Oracle can still borrow, and a rating prices risk, it doesn't call a default. The stock went up on the news, and that's the part that should bother you. Your move this week, go look up the top holdings of whatever fund sits in your 401k and find Oracle in it. You already own this. I don't invest in AI is, for most people with a retirement account, just not true, and S&P has now repriced a piece of that. Send this to whoever told you your retirement account was diversified. Story 2, Apple sued OpenAI on Friday in federal court in Northern California for stealing hardware trade secrets. Hold on though, because we ran the first half of this back on May 17th and the arrow pointed the other way. Back then, OpenAI had hired an outside law firm to think about suing Apple over the Siri deal. OpenAI never filed. Apple did first, and on completely different grounds. These two used to ship a product together. Now they're suing each other. The complaint names people. Tang Tan is OpenAI's chief hardware officer, and he spent 24 years at Apple running product design for the iPhone and the watch. Apple says he directed candidates interviewing at OpenAI to bring Apple's secrets into the room with them, and the suit says that included actual Apple parts and prototypes for show and tell. Cheng Lu, 8 years an Apple electrical engineer, allegedly kept a company laptop and pulled confidential files off it. And there's one line in that complaint that lands harder than the rest.
Company writing, and this is a direct quote from the lawsuit, LOL, I found out I can access the network storage. So funny. Apple says he then went on to download dozens of confidential hardware files, including information about unreleased products.
The relief Apple wants tells you the plan. It isn't asking for a headline damages number. It wants an injunction, the files back, and the evidence preserved. That's a company settling in for a long discovery fight, and discovery reads your Slack, your recruiter notes, and your interview feedback. What Apple actually wants is to read everybody's Slack, and OpenAI denies all of it, flatly. No interest in anyone else's trade secrets. These are allegations. Nothing here is proven. But watch where this actually lands, because it isn't on the two of them. California won't enforce a contract that stops you working for a rival, so trade secret law is the lever employers reach for instead, and it follows what you carry, not where you go. If you're interviewing in AI this year, 3 things. Bring no artifact, not a slide, not a component, not a sample of your work. Return every device and keep the confirmation email. And talk about what you can do, never about what your employer hasn't shipped yet. Follow this one. It'll run for years, and the rules it writes are the ones you'll job hunt under. Story 3. A Brown economics professor gave a take-home midterm, and the class average came back at 96%. That exam historically runs 65 to 80. Roberto Serrano has taught welfare economics there for almost 20 years, so he knows exactly what his own test is worth. He and his graders fed the questions to ChatGPT. What came back mirrored what the students had handed in, including the tell, instead of the obvious direct approach. A lot of them had reproduced the same convoluted proof the model likes. His description was kind of correct, but very off, and in a very convoluted style, so he warned the class he knew, and he moved the final into a proctored room. The average fell to 48.6, the lowest he has ever recorded. Now, we've been saying for weeks that the detectors are junk. The Authors Guild ran a real one, and it flagged a Joan Didion obituary as 66% machine. He did not catch them with software. He caught them with a room. And a Cornell engineering professor has been quietly running that same test every year.
And ever since the release of generative AI, I've been giving our problem sets to generative AI each year. And it was in August of 2025 that generative AI had near perfect solutions to these problems and to these questions.
That professor stopped grading the take-home entirely. Students still do it. They still submit it. And then they sit down with a member of staff and defend it out loud, and he says performance held. Nobody lost anything. And Serrano concedes plenty, so let's put it on the table. He suspects, he didn't prove it, student by student. A closed book proctored exam is harder than a take-home for reasons that have nothing to do with AI. And a chunk of that 47-point drop is fear and attrition, not just the missing model. 18 students dropped, 9 never showed, 19 failed outright. Brown's answer to all of this was a paperwork process. It asked him to file a separate complaint with exam copies for each of 86 students. He called that meek. That's a filing cabinet pretending to be a policy. If you hire, here's the read. A transcript from the unproctored years encodes an unknown amount of model output, and you should price it as a weak signal now. The substitute costs you 20 minutes. 1 live. Unassisted task in the actual skill. Walk me through why you chose this. So skip the detector and get yourself 1 unassisted observation. Follow this one. Story 4. Researchers at Boston Children's Hospital, with Harvard and OpenAI, took 376 children's cases that had already been given up on. These are kids who went through the commercial genomic pipelines, the specialist panels, the multidisciplinary reviews, and came out the other end with no answer at all. Filed as unsolvable. They ran them again, with OpenAI's O3. 18 new diagnoses. One of them is Kira. She's 28 now, and she waited almost 20 years to be told the name of what she has. Myofibrillar myopathy. Every one of those cases had already been given up on by people who do this for a living. Now, 3 weeks ago, I sat here and told you an AI had outdiagnosed a panel of 6 doctors, and then I told you the catch, because the researchers said it first. Those patients weren't real. Clean, written-up case files, not frightened people who forget things. This is the version where they're real. And the geneticist who ran it named the thing that actually changes.
Usually you have to be at a major medical center to have access to these type of analyses, or they can be expensive. If we can cut down on the time, cut down on the cost, that's a game changer, and will let reanalysis happen faster and more.
Analysis is the word to take out of this, and it's the one most families never know to ask for. Genes get linked to disease every month, so an exome that told you nothing 3 years ago can be readable against what we know today. No new blood draw. So ask your geneticist 2 questions. Can my existing genome data be reanalyzed against current knowledge, and am I eligible for the Undiagnosed Diseases Network? Do not ask for O3. It's a research protocol, not a service you can book. And the discipline is what sells me on it. The model did not diagnose a single one of them. It wrote up candidate explanations with the evidence attached, and a finding only counted after 2 specialists reviewed it, after more testing, after the variant was classified, and after a certified lab confirmed it. Before they pointed it at the unsolved pile, they ran it on 51 cases that were already solved, and it recovered 48. And the people who ran it are the ones telling you the limits. It's retrospective. 18 is a small number. They never measured whether one child's care actually changed. Not a product. Not FDA cleared. 4.8% of unsolvable is not a benchmark score. It's 18 kids. If a rare disease touches your family, send this to them tonight and ask about reanalysis. 3 of today's 4 are